Okay, good evening and welcome to Cheltenham Borough Council Licensing Subcommittee Alcohol and Gambling, being held on Tuesday the 9th of December 2025. My name is Councillor Simon Wheeler and I have been elected as chair of this committee. This meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council's YouTube channel, and the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any issues have been resolved. If you are here to make representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery. The recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. Please note a fire alarm test is not expected, so if the alarm does sound, you should immediately make your way to the nearest exit. Agenda item 2, apologies, I have none. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. I don't have any, likewise for the other members. Right, because this is a regulatory item, members must be present and have heard the proceedings in their entirety to vote on this item. We will ensure that the applicant and the applicant's representative, if they have one, are present in the meeting. I will ask the licensing officer to introduce the report. Members will get an opportunity to ask the licensing officer questions. Then the applicant or their representative will get, an opportunity to ask the licensing officer questions. Then the applicant or their representative will be given the opportunity to present their application or make their case. We ask the applicant to try and limit this to no more than 10 minutes. We have a short meeting, so we can be a little bit flexible on that. Members can ask the applicant questions, and then the applicant will be given the final right of reply. Members will then retire to debate the matter and write the decision notice. Members will return to the chamber and the chair or legal officer will deliver the outcome. Right, I would like to invite the licensing officer to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. The committee today has been convened to determine an application received for Tesco Express at 106 Promenade, Cheltenham. The application is made for the supply of alcohol every day between 6 a.m. and midnight, and late night refreshment every day between 11 p.m. and midnight. Relevant representations were received during the consultation period, and so the authority must hold a hearing to determine the application. The committee, as a result, may grant the licence as applied for, grant the licence subject to modified conditions considered appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor, or reject the application. In doing so, the committee must promote the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. When determining the application, the committee must have regard to the provisions of its own policy, the statutory guidance, and the objections and submissions from all parties at the hearing. The applicant should be able to show they have considered each licensing objective and how they are promoting these. If members feel no further steps are necessary to promote the licensing objectives, they can grant the application as applied for. Otherwise, they can add conditions or amend the operating schedule, but any action taken must be evidence-based, justified, and proportionate. As highlighted, members must promote the 4 licensing objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. When doing so, members can only consider valid licensing concerns related to one of these 4 objectives. For these areas, responsible authorities should be considered the lead authority, and no representations from any responsible authority, including the police or environmental health, were made with regard to this application. Members should also note that individuals remain accountable in their own right with any premises, especially when they have left the premises itself. However, the application is made for outside the court hours specified in Cheltenham Borough Council's Statement of Licensing Policy, and the applicant should have compelling reasons as to why this is relevant. In determining the application, the committee must give weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, the representations, including supporting information presented by all the parties, the Section 182 guidance, and its own statement of licensing policy. In considering this case on its own merits, members should also have regard to the adopted probity guide. That's my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any member questions of the officer? Yes, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. I notice in some of the objections that there is mention about concern that there will be increased litter and antisocial behaviour and that sort of thing. But we don't seem to have any comments from the police or environmental health on this. Have you any thoughts on that?
Other than that, the responsible authority should be considered the lead authority, and that their representations about their areas of expertise should carry considerable weight for the committee. So for the police, this would be crime and disorder and public safety, and for environmental health, public nuisance, including issues like litter. The fact that there have been no representations, members should take that into account with regard to the severity of the issues that are raised in the objections, and how the authorities that carry the most weight and have the expertise see these.
I still have more. Can I go add to that question just very briefly? And just very briefly from that question, is there any correlation obvious between other Tesco's in the town or other supermarkets that sell alcohol and litter?
I think that was probably for either the objectors or those who have made representations or have not to in the case of the responsible authorities to determine. But as nothing has been submitted, members can have their own thoughts about that.
Can you tell us about the public protection order that you mentioned? Because that seems relevant to this sort of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, so to combat antisocial behaviour such as drinking, Cheltenham Borough Council has adopted a public spaces protection order covering the majority of the town centre and core commercial area. Excuse me. This includes Imperial Gardens and Montpellier Gardens and the Promenade, which are named in some of the objections. And this public spaces protection order allows any constable or authorised officer to require a person to stop drinking alcohol or hand over any containers believed to contain alcohol when in one of these areas. So it's a method of control that the authority and the police have to prevent antisocial behaviour that might arise as a result of drinking in public spaces.
And I noticed that quite long hours are being asked for here from 6 o'clock in the morning till midnight. Are there other outlets in the area that cover this sort of time scale? It does seem long hours.
If you're happy to give me 30 seconds, I can check some other premises, if that's okay.
From my point of view, that's fine. It's just generally, I think it's been mentioned, that others don't have such long hours. Other Tesco premises in the town centre have similar hours. There are other retailers
in the town centre who have slightly reduced hours for the sale of alcohol between, for example, 10 a.m. and 11 p.m. But there are other premises in the vicinity that are off licences like Tesco that have those similar hours from 6 a.m. till midnight.
Any more questions? Do you have any questions of the officer?
Oh, no questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, if you would like to make your case.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for hearing this application and good evening, councillors and chair. So we're looking to open this store, which is across the way from here, in about February of next year. And I've got with me Bev Bunting, who is a store manager at the town centre store just by John Lewis's. If there are any questions that you kind of want answered specifically about the store, because I see that it was mentioned in one of the representations. So if I start off by just telling you a little bit about Tesco, it's a very well-known brand. We've got lots of shops. We've got 5 stores in the Cheltenham area. We have 2 formats. There's an extra or superstore format. So the one we've got a superstore here, and then we've got 4 in the express format, which is a smaller format, very much around convenience and top-up shops. In these stores, we sell a very limited range, but a very targeted range to what the local area will require. We don't sell high-strength products as such, unless they are a premium or a craft product. So we don't sell any white ciders or any of the kind of the higher strength products in the smaller stores. So alcohol's a small but very important part of our business, and the type of alcohol that we will have in the store is very much geared to what's needed in the local area or what people will be buying. The stores in Cheltenham work really well. I head up licensing, so if there are any problems, and they normally come to me, I can't remember the last time. I think Andy Cook was head of licensing when the last time I had some issues in any of our Cheltenham or Gloucester stores. So that kind of shows you how long ago that was, because I think he's been retired quite a few years. So the roles will be published for the community first as well. So there'll be a barcode that ends up on the front of the store, which means that people in the local community will get preferential treatment as opposed to people living further away. It'll be a mixture of experienced staff that we'll take from our other stores as well as new people. And recruitment's going to start about 4 weeks before the store opens. We take real pride in being a good neighbour. And we'll join local groups. If there's any local residents groups or shop watch or any other type of groups, we'll be more than happy to be part of them. And in fact, our other stores in the area are part of the Radio Link, so we work very closely in the town centre. And if there are people that are kind of coming by, Bev was telling me that, you know, if Marks and Spencer's will radio through and just say these 2 people are coming through, and one of the things that Bev will do with their team is kind of just stand at the front of the shop and not let any of these people into our store if they look like if they've been banned or if they've been moved on from say Marks and Spencer's or John Lewis's. Another thing that we've done locally, we've raised kind of over £120,000, and that's been funded to 63 different projects across Cheltenham. On a national level, we've got a really good relationship with all of our statutory authorities. I chair a group called the Retail Alcohol Standards Group, and there we look at how we sell alcohol as an industry to make sure that we do it responsibly. We offer free posters and free guidance to smaller independent retailers as well. And out of that came community alcohol partnerships, where if there are hotspots of underage drinking, then this project goes in, and I'm one of the board directors of that project. And we have some independent officers that will work with the police and other local stakeholders to give young people diversionary activities in an area and actually look at the root cause of why young people are drinking. We are members of both the Portman Group and Drink Aware as well, and I work closely with the Home Office and the Department of Health. And then we have our primary authority that will overlook all of our policies and procedures to make sure that we have got the best in the industry. And I go to them for constant advice because it's forever changing in how Tesco sell alcohol. So I talk to our primary authority all of the time. In terms of our training that we will offer and offer our store teams, the British Institute of Innkeepers have said that this is have endorsed it as what excellent training looks like. All our training is documented and it's digitally recorded. And that includes everything from checkout training to security training, as well as age-restricted sales training. Our refresher training is done twice a year, and our security training is called Eyes Wide Open, and that's about looking to see what's going on in the store and trying to prevent any conflict before it gets out of hand. We have a Think 25 policy. So in 2004, we had Think 21 and then moved to Think 25 in 2009. And we only accept approved ID that's been accepted by the Home Office. So anything with a pass logo, passport, driving licence or a military ID card. We also train our teams not to sell alcohol to someone who is drunk, and that training includes how to spot somebody who may be intoxicated, and the managers will always support our cashiers with the decisions that they make. We also train our teams on proxy sales, where somebody over 18 attempts to buy alcohol for someone under 18. For example, if there's a group of young people, then everybody in that group will get ID'd. And if we have noticed that money, for example, is exchanged outside, then again, we just don't sell that person who may be over 18 any alcohol if we believe they're going to be passing it on. I guess most importantly, we empower and encourage our colleagues to make the right decision, and we support their decision. So we have a policy which is you say no, we say no. So if our colleague has made a decision to ask for ID and the person doesn't have any, even if we think that person may, be quite borderline, we'll always support the colleague because we don't want the person to be undermined and therefore make the wrong decisions in the future. On our checkouts, when alcohol is scanned, the checkout will freeze and there's an action that needs to take place. There's a date of birth on there, and that changes every day because sometimes we recognise it can be quite difficult to check the date of birth. And then the message on the checkout says Think 25 with a date of birth, and if there's no other reason to refuse a sale, then that sale will go through. In terms of security, the store is linked to what we call our hub. So we have in Daventry a central place where we have hub operators that just look at CCTV in our stores. They work really closely with the police in pulling together statements and CCTV footage, and we'll send that directly to the police if there's ever an incident in store. We've also got panic alarms. We will tag high theft or high priced goods, and spirits are kept behind checkouts. Our teams will also be wearing body cams as well. So again, we've bought those in a few years ago, and there's also headsets so they can communicate very easily to each other in the store. We have something also that's called a door guard. So it was made for dark nights where we can actually see who's coming into the store and only let them in. So sometimes the door won't open unless we press a buzzer to let people in, and that's kind of used first thing in the morning or maybe last thing at night if that's needed. And we also empower our store managers to close the store if they ever need to, if ever there's a risk. Often that happens during busy events. So, for example, during football matches or where there's lots of people in a town centre or near one of our stores, we can close our stores for a period of time until, say, the football fans kind of move away. And again, our store managers are empowered to do that. The store also has access to licensing, which again, I head up. So my team will look after the stores as and when needed. We've also got a compliance team. We test our stores as well on Think 25 policy. So we have an external business that will test our Think 25 policy. So they send in 18 and 19-year-olds to make sure that Challenge 25 is being adhered to. And like I said, we very carefully pick our range to what is required locally. And there's also on promotions and things, sometimes you'll see in the adverts that you'll have offers that are on in our larger store, but not in our smaller shops. So when we advertise, sometimes you'll see the message that these offers aren't available in our express stores. Our prices are nationally set, so a store can't vary the price of a product unless there's a reduced item that we kind of, maybe there's a bottle of wine and that's the only one left and we're not ranging that anymore. The late night refreshment licence that we have asked for is for a Costa coffee machine. So we're not going to start selling, anything else. It is specifically for a Costa machine. And there's a weird thing in the law that if the item is paid for through the checkout, because we want all our money kept behind in a checkout rather than in a vending machine, then we need a late night licence. Had we been able to put money into the machine, we wouldn't actually need a licence for this machine. And so turning to the representations, I guess I'm only going to deal with the things that I see as relevant rather than some of the comments in there that aren't relevant to licensing. I guess I'd just like to add that we're really experienced in kind of dealing with busy store environments. We have them up and down the country. This format has been, the convenience format has been an incredible success for Tesco's, and that's why it's kind of popped up everywhere. People don't like walking just to get a couple of items. They want this kind of a store on their doorstep. So in terms of hours, as you've seen, we operate really well and we don't get any issues operating the hours that we do in our other expresses within Cheltenham. We don't get any issues. And if it's usually all dependent on footfall, so we will open the store 6 till midnight. If the footfall just isn't there, then that's when we look at kind of reducing the hours. But clearly here, our stores are open at 6 a.m. in the morning, and then they are open till either 11 o'clock or midnight. Our expresses. We aren't again in terms of noise. The issues that have come up through noise, I guess it's one of fear. This store is on a busy high street. If we do get any issues with people that are making lots of noise, we have the power not to serve anything to them and ask them not to come to our store if they're causing antisocial behaviour that we hear about. Usually the police will get in touch with the store if there are people that are causing problems, or even the local community. So if we hear of anything, it's within our gift not to serve people who are then causing problems for the community later on. In terms of the antisocial behaviour, we haven't had any objections from the police, and I guess I'd ask you to draw the appropriate weight to that, because they are the custodians of crime and disorder. If they had had any issues, then they would have spoken to me and they would have suggested some conditions that they would want on our licence. In the store kind of down the high street, we work very well locally. We work with local guards as well. Bev was telling me about the John Lewis Guards and how information is kind of passed on to each other. There were some rough sleepers outside our store, but we actually worked with the council, and Bev's been really complimentary about how the council work in this area, and actually they helped very quickly to kind of move people on. In terms of the issues over litter, we will have litter bins outside our store, and we're responsible for emptying those as and when it's needed. We don't have an issue with litter outside of our stores, and again, when I went to the store in the town, I didn't see any litter outside. So we will always keep the vicinity of our store clean and tidy. That waste, we get rid of that waste, so that's taken internally onto our deliveries as they leave. So I guess they're the issues that kind of came out of the objections. I guess there's not a presumption under the Act to restrict unless there's good reason or evidence. So the hours that we are applying for with our opening hours would be the ones that we are looking to have our licensed hours. We don't sell a huge amount of alcohol at those times early in the morning or very late at night. However, we do find that there's a bit of what we call a halo effect. People's shopping habits, people don't, if they can't buy something as and when they want to buy it, they tend to go to other stores to buy where they can. So, you know, to kind of keep our trade, we would ask that actually we are able to offer our whole offering rather than everything except alcohol. So I guess just in terms of the objections, I mean, each application is granted on its own merits, and really, you know, we've had no objections from the police and or any other statutory authority. And I guess just to close off, just the right weight should be given to that. And we're here for any questions that you may have. I hope I didn't go over my 10 minutes.
I think you probably did, but as I say, very short agenda tonight, so I think we can be a little bit generous there. Do I have any member questions? Councillor Barrell.
Yes, thank you very much for that very, very full report that you've given. And I think you've answered a lot of the things I wanted to ask about, things that had come up with the objections, such as the rough sleepers and that sort of thing. I wonder if you could just clarify for me about this late night refreshment, because it's also mentioned in one of the objections, between 11 o'clock and midnight. I mean, are you able to sell the Costa coffee before 11 o'clock? I don't quite see how it works.
Yes, so we need a late night refreshment licence if we want to sell after 11 o'clock and before 5 a.m. in the morning. So it is just for that 1 hour, and it is only for a coffee machine. We are not going to be selling anything else. And we have these coffee machines up and down the country, which we then apply for this licence for. It's just a weird thing in the law, in how it's phrased and how we operate.
I think you have covered the other stuff. Obviously, you're very well organised, and you've got policies, etc., to cover all the normal licensing objectives, etc. So thank you for that.
Councillor Pemberton.
Could I just clarify from that, between 11 p.m. and midnight, I presume that I could go in your store and buy a coffee, but also buy a packet of cereal or whatever else you've got on offer as well at that time?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions. I don't know if I heard you quite right, but you said something about at the front of the shop you'll have a barcode to give local people preferential service. Have I got that right, or have I totally misunderstood it?
That was for the recruitment process, because we want to employ local people so that the benefit is for the local people. So it was for that. No, unfortunately not. You should all be getting preferential treatment.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I obviously didn't hear the other little bit of it. Oh, right, yes. The other thing was probably a question of officers. Because you said about having litter bins, which sounds good to me, but I'm just wondering about items on the highway. Where do we stand with that?
There is a separate regime that covers objects being placed on the highway. And there is some discretion that can be shown by the authority about objects that are immediately outside of the premises. I would say probably the placement of litter bins is perhaps a discussion that might need to happen between officers and the applicant based upon that policy. But the fact that litter bins are being offered to combat litter is relevant for this hearing on the basis of litter being a concern under the licensing objectives, if that makes sense.
I think if you feel that that's something worth talking about, I can leave that in your capable hands. And the other thing was about the licensing hours. As you know, we've got a policy that allows sale of alcohol from 9 till 11. If we want to go against our policy, we need to have good reason. Now, I can see the latter end between 11 and 12. I think it would be very churlish of us to refuse the sale of alcohol when there are pubs and clubs open till probably gone midnight. But first thing in the morning, can you give us a good reason why you should be selling between 6 and 9 in the morning? Because I would have thought that just seems a little bit odd to me.
The majority of our stores that we have do have license hours that match their opening hours, their trading hours. I guess, just speaking to Bev and about who comes in at 6 o'clock to kind of buy alcohol as well. And we talked about shift workers, so people who it's actually their evening rather than their kind of morning. So they come home, they want to buy some beers and drink that before they go to sleep, and then they carry on with their work, I guess, for that evening. We're not an off licence as such, so because the majority of our goods are other products, so we have a very, very small amount of alcohol that will be on offer anyway. But also it's for people that can come in, buy a gift. If the concern is around, sometimes, young people, we've got very strong Think 25 policies around making sure that we don't sell to people that shouldn't have alcohol at that time in the morning. If you were thinking of street drinkers, I mean, we spoke about street drinkers, and they just don't come into our store to buy because they know they won't be able to buy any alcohol from us. Actually, at any time, if they're being problematic, then we won't sell them alcohol at any time during the day.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Unless there are any more questions, I have none. No. Can I give you your final right of reply then?
Yeah, I think I gave quite a thorough brief, so I haven't really got much to say, only that I hope that I've been able to demonstrate that we are an excellent operator, and we've got a great history of partnership working if that's what's required in this area. We've got policies and practices in place that will uphold the licensing objectives, and there's really no evidence that's kind of been presented around why we shouldn't be granted the hours that we've been requested. And just thank you for hearing this application.
Okay, thank you. Right, now, do members feel it's necessary to retire to make for our debate, or are you happy to debate in public?
I think we've got to go out.
We've got to go. I'm told we've got to go out. Okay, then that's absolutely fine. We'll leave.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't know if we've got a room to meet. Yes, we can actually. Yeah,
Yes.
because there's a meeting now in the room that you were in earlier, so we need to go to a different one at that time.
So you're going to leave. Yeah. Right. Right, thank you. I'll now ask the legal officer to read our comments, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. At the hearing, the subcommittee heard from a representative of the applicant and the licensing officer. The review of the licence was requested as a result of 2 objections being received by the local authority. No representations were received from any of the responsible authorities, and all relevant written submissions have been considered. The subcommittee has had due regard to the provisions of the Licensing Act 2003, which confer the powers of the licensing authority to deal with the application, the obligation to promote the 4 licensing objectives, and the relevant sections of the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and Statutory Guidance. The subcommittee considered that it must carry out its functions with a view to promoting the 4 licensing objectives as set out in Section 4.2 of the 2003 Act. The decision of the subcommittee is to grant the licence as applied for. The subcommittee see no reason not to grant the licence. Tesco's is a huge business with other similar stores in the town where there has been no evidence that any of the other stores have been associated with any antisocial behaviour, and there is no evidence to show that this store will be any different. Furthermore, neither of the responsible authorities, namely the constabulary, who are the specialists in relation to crime disorder, nor environmental health, who specialise in noise and public nuisance, have objected to the application. The committee reminded that there is a public space protection order within the area, so any issues of drinking in the street can be dealt with speedily. And the subcommittee were happy with the litter proposals put forward by the applicant and are confident that Tesco's have sufficient policies to cover most eventualities. All parties are reminded that there are rights of appeal against the licensing authority's decision pursuant to Section 181 of Schedule 5 to the Licensing Act. An appeal must be made to the Magistrates' Court and commence within 21 days of notification of the authority's decision. All parties are also reminded that should there be any issues once the store is open, there is a right of review. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So there you have our decision. I hope that's okay for you. And with that, our officers will be contacting you soon, if not immediately, but soon, with the formal decision. Thank you very much. Agenda item 4. Any other items the chair determines are urgent? I have none.